All right, welcome to this inaugural episode Confessions of an Artist. In this episode, I would like to talk about something that's close to me, and that is where have you been the past few years? Now, the short answer to that, to just get over and done with, is I needed to step away to perfect my craft. I felt that I wasn't in a space that was conducive to my creative process. And I felt limited by what I could do creatively just by not having the skill level I needed for the particular instruments that I wanted to record with. And I wasn't confident vocally, for example. I wasn't confident on the piano, the drums. And these were aspects that I felt were limiting me from really expressing my utmost creativeness within the pieces that I wanted to create. And it was a tough decision to make, but ultimately it was the best decision, because if I didn't do it then, I probably will never have done it. Back in 2019, when I released my single Pressure, excuse me, I it was late 2019. It was a successful release. I mean, for my first one entirely, it was phenomenal. But the backstory behind it was a process in itself. When I had completed that single, it was my first one. And as many when you do your first one, it's an interesting experience because you're confident about it, but you also are unsure if it's the correct blend, and you have to have confidence in yourself to understand if it is engineered correctly. And because I like that confidence, back when I released that piece, I sent it off to another engineer to have a look at. And what I didn't account for was his creative process, his interpretation of the piece. We can say, we're paying people, right? We're paying creatives to help us create X, whatever it is. And it has to be the way I want it to be. And I don't see it that way. I see there's a give and take in any creative relationship, particularly if you're working with creatives and you're working with engineers, mix engineers, mastering engineers. There's always going to be a particular flavor that they add that's their own signature. And if you look at any engineer, they have their own particular plugins that they use that is their own signature style, their sound. So they're adding their own sound to the record. And more so, they're adding their own interpretation of the record. Now, your interpretation as the creative of the piece might be different, and in most cases is different to what their interpretation might be. And let me give you an example. The kick drum in the original Pressure piece was meant to be slightly fluid. And what I mean by that is that I wanted the kick drum to be present and consistent in certain parts, but then a different texture of the kick would appear in the release, particularly in the main sort of transition or the main first drop, if you will, in the song. It wasn't meant to be a consistent sort of fall on the floor, big room kick. And that was partially the approach that was taken when I sent the mix off to get an additional mix on it. Again, I had worked with you know a good friend of mine now and fantastic engineer and musician who is my mentor, but he wasn't in the electronic space, and I felt that I needed to get the approach from an additional person who was within the electronic sphere to see what would be the approach from that particular environment. And there were definitely aspects within the mix that I liked. It brought some great flavors and textures. But at the same time, I felt that a lot of aspects that I liked within the mix were being changed or manipulated in a way that I preferred to be the way they were. And going through that process of back and forth, we got to a point that we were both happy with the mix that was created, and and having my mentor also be within the process, helping me listen and guiding me through that journey helped a lot. And we got to a point where we were all happy with how it was sounding. But the whole experience for me, it rubbed me off the wrong way. I felt that, again, you're sacrificing a big part of the style of the mix. Now, mixing is very personal, for me at least. It can drastically change the attitude of the whole piece. And it can make things completely different than what you originally had intended them to be. And it's not just, is this mix wide? Is it thick? Is it all that other stuff? It's, the attitude. Does it have the vibe that you want? Because we have to remember the reason that we listen to music. I mean, the reason I got into music is because of the feeling that it gives, the vibe that it gives. And that's the most important thing before you step into any technical aspects. Now, whether the mix is X this or X that, if it gives you the vibe they're going for, then that's the most important key. Now, if the vibe is that you're in some garage, excuse me, in some garage, with a hose, and you want it to sound like, like a drain pipe or something like that, I don't know. You want it to sound garagey and then all this other stuff, then that's the vibe. If you think about, Appetite for Destruction, the Guns N' Roses album, is just a band that got into a room and smashed out rock classics. It wasn't a hugely technical and engineering masterpiece. It's just has a vibe to it that's just fantastic. And when you listen, when you watch, I should say, the documentary, it's that they just went into the studio and just let's do it. And as much as I enjoy the engineering side of things, you always have to be on the side of is it a vibe, and that is very challenging to do when you're not sitting next to someone. See, with my mentor, I'm sitting next to him for every piece that we work on. But that might not necessarily be the case if they're international, and I have to send things off, and I can't obviously do that for every single piece or every single little change I want to make. And more so, getting the performance vocally, or the guitar that you want performed, or the piano, you, unless you're the one performing it, you can't get the exact performance that you want. You always have to allow the creativeness of the other creative to come through as well. I find that these days the technical aspects of songs are much more present. What I mean by that is we have many courses now available, and we have many engineers, and many people are much more widely versed in the creative process of making music, which is fantastic. But at the same time, I find that even with the addition of AI, etc., sure, we can create the great sonic space for this song, etc. And we have many plugins to help. Many new plugins come every day. But the ideas, the vibe, the musicianship, the skill that's required, I find is depreciating. And that's another aspect of the classic records I fell in love with. It's the performances that are played. You listen to Megadeth, you listen to Metallica, you listen to those classic thrash metal records. I mean, these guys were just killing it. And they're still killing it. I mean, those performances are just bang on. But, for example, Master of Puppets, that album from Metallica, I wouldn't say that's the world's greatest engineered album, but it just has a bloody vibe to it, man. Get you rocking. But what makes that vibe? It's the people, obviously, but it's also the skill of involved in playing those instruments. It ain't just about who can make this bass sound the best. It's the musical content within those sounds, the way they're played, the way the artist is able to manipulate them through his skill as a musician. And if I was going to continue down this path as my career, as my life, I knew that I needed to have the skill required to be able to create fluidly the music that I wanted to without any boundaries. So for me to be able to pick up an instrument and be able to confidently play the piece that I want, incorporate that into the music that I'm creating. And that takes time. I'm not gonna be sitting here telling you that, you just wake up and you can play all this instrumentation. It takes time. It took Prince time to learn instrumentation. He didn't just wake up, the next day and boom, there you go. It takes time to learn. You need to practice. You need to have discipline to be able to play the instrumentation at the level that you wanted. Now, you don't have to become an absolute, maestro to be able to, play the particular way that you want to play. You have to be able to confidently play the instrument the way that you want to play it to get across the message that you want to get across. And with all those reasons, I felt that, okay, I need to step back and really perfect this. And it turned into an obsession. That's something that you have to, come to terms with that it's unrelatable. When I when people ask me where have you been, I'm like, man, it's turned into obsession for me. All I do is think about music. I sleep, I wake up, work, do music, work on music. I think about music. I practice music. That's my life. I I do it because that's that's what it is when it's obsession, and that's difficult to relate to other people with. Most people won't get that. They won't understand the level of commitment that takes. And to a large part, it's because unfortunately they might have not found what they truly love, or what they're what they will I guess what they were born to do. And a part is also that don't wish to have that level of obsession. They want to be able to do other things, have a family, have kids, have be able to go out on the weekends, do normal stuff, and that's fine as well. I'm not gonna be here and tell you that, or do this, do that. Whatever you want to do, that's probably the best for you. I do what I want to do because that's what I want to do. I find that for me, I'm at a point that I'm comfortable with, this being my life. And I feel that's the only way to create, work that will be impactful. Now, how impactful my work will be, that's not up to me. That's, something I can't judge or quantify. But what I can do is give it everything that I've got. Become the best I can at the instrumentation that I have around me. I can become the best I can be on the creative side, on the electronic side of the recording that I do. These are things that I can control. I can get better at recording, to get better as do it yourself. And again, this is why I stepped away, because it takes time to learn how to develop as an engineer, the recording process of music, figuring out how you want to approach recording, figuring out what mics to use. When you're in the situation, like the past few years, you might not get access to studios. You have to be in your home. So what are you going to do then? And I feel that that was also a factor in my decision to step away and do this creative process of learning. I'm not going to say it wasn't. I was angry at times, especially in Melbourne. We were locked down so many times that, a lot of my plans, a lot of things that I wanted to do were delayed or just cancelled. And I had to make the decision of either I continue making the music that I currently do, or I step away and expand my creative possibilities. Now, I didn't expect that to take so long, but I didn't also factor in that I might not be as talented that I might think I am. And that's something that's revealing as you push yourself to get better, as you push yourself to those plateaus to get to that next plateau. You start seeing what you're able to take in, how much information you're able to take in. And that's just a process creatively that you have to adjust by, and you have to, learn to manipulate correctly. Now, I hope that gives you a good, understanding and idea behind, why I chose to step away. And I guess the best way you can put it is I decided to step away to come back stronger, to put my best foot forward. And in a time when you have so much music, you have so many possibilities, you have so many things out there, music coming out daily, hundreds, thousands of tracks coming out daily. So many movies, theater, etc. Everything's out there. Money's spent left, right, and center to create entertainment. You have to ask yourself, as the artist, which kind of artist am I going to be? Am I going to be more of an entertainer, as a performer? Or am I going to be more of a musician, of an artist, musically? And it's a difficult idea and concept to understand, because we view, many big artists, even by saying that, we view them as artists when they're not. I personally don't see them as artists. I see them as performers, as entertainers, and bloody good ones. But for me, I would say that Prince is an artist. David Bowie is an artist. They're thankfully great entertainers and performers, but I will call them artists. And in an environment, like I've mentioned, there's so much available. Is what you have the best foot forward, or are you just putting things out there and seeing what sticks? I'll give you an example. Is your guitar playing the level it needs to be at to present it to the world? Or is it something that you need to work on? And now, sure, you can come from the perspective of, you have to start from somewhere. But you have to ask yourself, what point are you starting from? What's that point that you feel is a good point to start at? Now, I'm not saying you spend the next 20, 30 years working on it before you start. That's, you're just delaying things there. But there has to be a level of professionalism. There has to be a level where you say, okay, now I can confidently present it. And you get better as you progress. Just like these podcasts, I wouldn't say I'm the best at doing these. But I've done a few in the past. I'm going to get better as I do them. But I find that for me, it's right now the best that I can offer from my standing point. And that's the important distinction to make. If you feel that you are operating at the best that you can be, then fantastic, and start putting out the content. But if you feel that it's something that you need to still work on, then there's nothing wrong with stepping back for a little bit and putting in the work to get better. When we look at some of the greatest, masterpieces ever created, some of the best albums, some of the best artwork, some of the greatest movies, they didn't come from just, putting it out there and it's done in 3 hours and, let's brag about it. It's time that was put in. It's patience. It's figuring out your best foot forward and putting everything you can into that and delivering that one piece, however long it takes. And then you put it out there when you know it's ready to go. And that can be viewed as procrastination, right? But I don't see it that way. It doesn't matter if it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months. I could care less if it took you 1 week to make a song. It doesn't matter. Every song is different. Every song takes a certain amount of time. Some songs come along quick, some songs take longer. But even then, when you've created it, you have to ask yourself, okay, is this my best foot forward? And I like to leave you with something that stuck with me from the famous Steve Jobs. And within that speech, talks about many different things. But one aspect is asking yourself, is this what I love? And I'm paraphrasing here, but he goes on and says, every day I wake up and I look myself in the mirror and I ask myself, am I doing what I love? And if the answer is no for more than a few days, then I know I need to change something. That for me is a perfect analogy for the creative content that we create now. And asking yourself, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, is this the best that I can be? Is the content that I have right now really the best that I can put out? And if the answer is yes, then go for it. No matter what anyone else says, you know confidently that it's the best right now, and you're only going to get better if you keep pushing forward. But if you're looking at yourself and you have this gut feeling and you have something within yourself that's saying, this isn't where it needs to be, and you feel that it's just not your time yet, then you need to disappear, put the work in, and come back stronger. All right. Thank you so much for joining me on this inaugural episode. I hope that you got something valuable from this. And I hope that I was clear in my storytelling for why I decided to step away. It's a challenging thing to reflect on. And you're always second guessing yourself. Was it the best decision? Was it, etc., this, etc., that? And ultimately, you just have to be confident in your decision and trust the creative process. And have faith in something greater than yourself, in a knowing that you're on the best possible path that you can be. And ultimately, that's all you can ever ask from yourself. All right, thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you in the next one.